So hi guys, I'm Rahul. I'm the product manager for Boss specifically in the search team, and I've been working with this product for almost 4.5 years now. I originally was a developer on it, external to Yahoo, and I was building applications on top of it. I ended up becoming the product manager for it, and then have been working on it for the last almost 3 years now. So at Yahoo. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing with the product and how we've been taking it in different directions. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. And that's my contact info right there. I'll put that up in the end as well. So what is Boss, right? Boss is really three things. It's meant to be a way for developers to get access to our search data and infrastructure. And by the idea of search, we really are kind of taking it in different directions, right? And so one of the things is that we started off with Boss being about search services, giving access to our search backends. But over time, we've kind of expanded that to also additionally include other APIs. It is a commercial API, so we actually do charge for that data. But in addition, we also give out sponsored search ads. And so that's kind of a key part to the model. So the idea is that developers can take that, build an experience on top of that, and really start monetizing their experiences so that their users can benefit from getting the most relevant advertising, but they're also benefiting from getting a service that being supported and being innovated on a daily basis. And the last part is support, right? Like in the Boss team, we're really, really passionate about support. We spend a lot of time on it. We spend a lot of time answering people's questions, getting feedback, improving our product on a day-to-day basis based on that feedback. So we like that kind of process where it's like a lot of support and tools and so on. So we have a lot of code samples, for example. We have a very active forum, things like that. So we take do a lot of work in there. So what does that mean in terms of what I'm talking about Boss? So it's a RESTful API, which is giving you access to our search backends. So you can pass in a query, you get back results, either in XML or JSON. You can take that results, blend it, re-rank it with anything that you please, and kind of build an experience on top of that. So there's search data, there's web search, image, spelling, news, also try, this kind of like search suggestions, blog search, and ads, obviously. And then just late last year, we also launched geo services. Those are essentially two APIs, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There's an API called PlaceFinder. There's an API called PlaceSpotter. I especially like PlaceSpotter. I think in the concept of a hack, it's really, really interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And as I mentioned, you can kind of blend, re-rank results, make your own feel, mix it up with other APIs, really in the concept of a mashup. So you could take our search data, mix it up with the Facebook API, mix it up with the YouTube API, for example, make something interesting happen as a consequence of that. And change the rankings or whatever you please to do with it. And it's all based on OAuth, and we'll talk a little bit about OAuth as well. So we use OAuth for authentication and kind of for validating traffic. In the concept of search, obviously we have web search, and we also have a smaller subset of web search called limited web. It's giving you kind of a smaller version of the index, if you will, which is less frequently updated. And you can do a lot of complex combinations of queries. We'll go through some examples here, but you can ask for a specific results only for specific sites. You can remove certain sites from your results set. You can use unary operators, things like that. In the case of like image search, for example, you can filter by specific height and width of images, certain types of images, certain sites again, etc. News search, for example, you can do time span filtering. So I like this a lot personally. You can only ask for results for specific time frames, and you can get a lot more content. So if you go to any search engine out there, whether it be Yahoo or Google or Bing, you can only get like a small subset of the abstract information. But in the case of Boss, you can actually get a lot more. And so you can take that information, understand meaning from that abstract, and then based on that, re-rank your results or mix it in with other content. And you can do a lot of similar kind of search filters that you do on any other search engine as well. Quickly, before I get into some of the search examples, I'll talk about what our geo services are about, especially in the concept of a hack. I think it's really, really powerful. So PlaceFinder, again, PlaceFinder is also available as a YQL table, by the way, for you, both of these services actually. But PlaceFinder is just a geocoder. So you give it a lat long, you give it an address, it'll convert it to a lat long, it'll normalize the address. And in reverse, if you give it a lat long, it'll also convert it to an address. In the case of PlaceSpotter, it's super interesting for me personally. But you can take any textual content, give it that textual content, it'll understand locational entities that are in that textual content. So for example, if I had an article that mentioned Hammersmith and the West End and London, it would actually pull out and say, London, it's a city, Hammersmith, it's a neighborhood in London. And then you can combine it with another API that we have called GeoPlanet, which is part of the YDN set of tools. And it'll actually give you hierarchical information. So you can combine and say, West End's part of the city of London, and its siblings are the neighborhoods of Hammersmith and Mayfair or whatever else. So you can kind of get that kind of interesting richness of information. And you can couple this with other APIs to do things like local personalization, et cetera. So a lot of richness there that you can build. So how do you hack with it? Most important thing is the query. People in the search world like me, everything's about the query and what you can understand based on that query. So we understand what the user's looking for. You can use that for follow-up queries based on what you're getting back. And this can come from anywhere. So it could come from, you're getting it from a keyword extraction tool, from a search box, or from a URL. So you can kind of do tokenization based on URLs, things like that. So it's really your BFF, if you will. And so here's a really simple example. Like I'm just asking for a query dark night with the format XML. So we get JSON and XML. You can use whatever format. And so that's kind of an example in there. So when you start, like I showed you a simple example there of how you pass a query in, but let's start looking at really much richer data sets, right? So for example, here I'm looking at what about getting data from multiple data sets. So I want to look for Obama, but look for both for web search, image search, and news search all at the same time. Get all that content together, blend it in together, for example, right? So that's the first query there. The second query is I'm doing the similar things we're calling multiple backends, but I'm specifically querying different, each of those backends with different queries. So in the case of web, I'm asking for Obama. In the case of images, I'm asking for flowers. And in the case of news search, I'm asking for Egypt. Right? Bringing those three subjects together, depending on what you're doing with your hack, can kind of be interesting as well. Let's take like a simple use cases where we're searching through specific sites here. So here I'm actually going a very simple movie search. I'm searching for the movie Dark Knight. I'm specifically searching for in the movies.yahoo.com, Netflix, and IMDb sites. I'm getting back all movies content now. I can then figure out, hey, which of these sites are specifically associated with the movie, which of them are associated with the trailers, for example, based on what I'm looking for in the URL or in the abstract, and then show only that content. You can do the same search against movie image search or any of the other backends as well. You can also do and/or operators, and these can get very complex. So you can essentially start doing things like, I'm asking for Steve Jobs and only sites that have either the iPad or the iPhone. So kind of mix that up. But then only return back specifically to these sites. Don't give me the entire web. So you can kind of mix it up with site restricts and/or queries, things like that. You can also do unary operators. So in this particular case, I'm searching for Batman, but not for Dark Knight. So I want to get all the information about all the Batman movies, but not about Dark Knight. And then I can, again, add this with a site restrict query specifically to certain sites. Get back that information and then process it in any way I want. Similar idea here. I want to find pages with Heath Ledger, but not Dark Knight. So I'm specifically searching for Heath Ledger, but I'm subtracting Dark Knight from there. Okay? And again, I'm doing a site restrict there as well. So what does the output look like? And I've only shown a web search output here. The different backends have got very different responses, and you can get additional information based on the backend. So in the case of web search, you're getting things like the date, click URLs, the URL information, titles, and abstracts as well. So take a look at the documentation. It's pretty large. There's a lot of different things that you can do depending on the backends. For example, our news, as I mentioned, with news search, you can do time filtering. With our blog search, you can do much richer things like search for specific sources, search for specific authors, things like that as well. Before I wrap up here, I'll kind of quickly do some additional data on image search and news search as well. So in image search, you can search for, only search for San Francisco, but are not offensive. For example, obviously San Francisco would be okay, but depending on the situation. If you're searching for large size images or smaller size images or only thumbnails, things like that, so you can use a dimensions parameter. You can search for specific refer URLs as well, so only returning from Flickr, for example. And then you can get a whole bunch of additional content. So you can get the size of the file, height, width, title, and how many results are obviously available as well. New search, time filtering. So give me back Osama, but only in the last 7 days, if there's any articles that mention him specifically. But then you can also do things like give me back something that was between 20 hours to 2 years. So give me back kind of range of data as well. And then you can re-rank results based on by date, but also by relevance as well. You can use BOSS with YQL. In fact, Gaurav just did that with his hack, and which he was showing. We have a community table BOSS search that you can use with all the backends. So you can query them and use it via YQL as well. Obviously, you can use the API. We have a ton of code samples and stuff there. Just quickly talk about OAuth. We use OAuth for 1.0 with just two-legged. We don't have a user part of this story, so it's really two-legged OAuth. So you're required to pass a key and secret, which is sign. We use HMC HSA1 and a timestamp. So you pass it to our servers. So you don't have to worry about too much. Again, we have a ton of code samples. So if you have any questions or anything, I'll be around whole weekend, so feel free to ask. Just quick ideas and thoughts. You can mix it up, use BOSS with Twitter and Facebook. Interesting things that you can do there. I like a lot of mobile stuff where you can do things around mixing BOSS with potentially Place Spotter to understand locational intent, doing search around that locational intent. Very powerful. With YouTube, obviously, there's a lot of vertical search engine APIs that you can get. Programmable web has a ton of them. Something to try interesting. I mentioned local in search, especially in the context of mobile. I think it's really powerful. Then there's Chrome extensions that you can potentially do as well that could be potentially interesting in this space. We have BOSS keys, by the way. I don't know if you got them by email or anything, but if you want to use it, just reach out to me or any of the other folks, and we'll get it to you. We have code samples, as I mentioned, to just set you up with like a base set. And I'm doing actually kind of an in-depth dive just after this, so I'll be walking through kind of a hack that I built specifically with BOSS. So if you have any questions as well, feel free to ask. Hack away. Any questions?
Is it multi-language?
Yes. So no. I know a lot of people want that, but no. He was wondering if there's data from Site Explorer that we can potentially open up through BOSS. There isn't shopping search specifically, but you could do some things around doing site restricts combined with some YQL tables that we have to do some interesting things there.
Definition in the Hammersmith London example. You hover over a word and it gives you a definition or something like that? What's the output of the...
Yeah, so actually let me show it to you since we have a little bit of time here. I actually just put this up together. Oops. Right, so this is a really simple textual content that I wrote there, and I'm running the query against it. So here specifically, it's figuring out Hammersmith's. It's in London, it's in England. It's got a lat long associated with it. It's a suburb. And then you can query that alongside GeoPlanet. GeoPlanet gives you hierarchical information. And so you can say, where is Hammersmith? So it'll tell you Hammersmith's part of the city of London, which is a part of the country, and so on. And similarly, it also pulled out, Hammersmith in both of these cases. So I don't know why it didn't do West End. Is West End with like 2 or just 1? 2 words? Okay, let me try this out. So it pulls out London, but not West End. Let me play around with that and come back to you guys, but for some reason it didn't pull out West End.
One of the examples we had, that's the latest bit out of the abstracts coming back. We assume that they're slightly.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you repeat that?
One of your examples had, I think the abstract had some HTML in it. Can we assume that what you're giving back is filtered? It's not going to have, cross-site scripting.
So it's not.
So it's filtered for on-mouse over alerts. You've just been.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else?
Limitation for calls per day?
Pardon me?
Is there a limitation for API calls per day?
No, there's no ad.
Repeat the question.
Is there any limits on calls per day or anything of that sort? No, there's no limits. Yeah. And if you look at the actual pricing table, it's very, very reasonable. And if you actually build an experience with sponsor search on it, it's a very profitable business, if you will, for like a lot of folks who built interesting applications on top of it.
Well, do you want me just to introduce BBC?
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. And again, after this, I'll be doing more in-depth. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question about the rate limits of the API.
Yeah.
What about it?
There are no rate limits at all.
But because it's in beta period, but after that, never always unlimited?
Sorry, I'm not following.
Always unlimited request would be possible?
So during the hack day, we have keys, and so they're like unlimited requests, and you can kind of do whatever you want. With like as a service itself, it's a commercial API, so you actually have to sign up. But once you sign up, it's an unlimited API, so there's no limits associated with the service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right. Let's hear it for Rahul. Thank you, Rahul.